All right. Hi, welcome everybody. Welcome to Freedom Film Fest. We are here today to celebrate 10 years. 10 years of the Freedom Film Festival. And I think 10 years is a long time, right? Maybe I'll start by introducing all the filmmakers over here. I think all of us, audience-wise, audience at home, we have all just finished watching this really, really wonderful Dare to Document by Christine. Christine, say hi. Celeste, what am I talking about? Celeste, say hi, please.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, that's Celeste. Directed by Celeste, as well as a film by four young filmmakers. They're called together collectively called A Drifting Cloud. We've seen some clips from their film. The film is called 自由自在. We have Jia Hao, Brandon, Timothy, as well as Chris. All right. So these are the filmmakers. I think it's a real honor, right, for all of us filmmakers. Oh yeah, myself. My name is Tzang Tong, and I am independent filmmaker, scriptwriter. I directed the films Fairyville, Wicked Tale, and VIPI. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity that the three of us, is a big honor that three of us are here to kickstart this really, really wonderful milestone of a festival like Freedom Film Fest. And for it to be able to last for 10 years in a country like Singapore, I think that is already a milestone for filmmaking, a milestone for voices, a milestone for democracy, a milestone about us as a maturity as a country as well. I think we've evolved to the point that we have a certain amount of maturity and tolerance to strong voices. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Let's start this Q&A. I'd like to tell the audiences who are watching this online, feel free to add to the noise, type your questions in the meeting chat to any one of us. And maybe I'll start by asking you guys, what do you make of the energy of a festival like the Freedom Film Fest? There are many festivals out there. Anybody wants to start first?
I think this year is definitely different from all the rest of the years. This is the first time something like this has taken place. We're all doing this online. We don't get to see each other face to face. So in a sense, don't have that immediate physical sense of community that you do over the years. But still, it's great. Like you said, it's 10 years and this thing is still going strong.
Yeah. So, I completely know what you mean. Like how it is a year of unpredictability. It's also a year of innovation. How we are all kind of reinventing the idea of a community cinema, right? Watching films, the idea of watching films has changed. What do you think, Celeste, about the energy of a festival like the Freedom Film Festival?
I think it's very different because there's a lot of openness to introducing different topics and different forms of storytelling, which you don't. I feel like with a lot of festivals, there's this need to become very like legitimate and shiny, and I feel like Freedom Film Festival luckily hasn't had to succumb to that. Yeah,
I like that. I like that train of thought, right? About the need for the glamour, the need for the gloss and the shininess and the feeling of prestige, and that there is something actually real here. What do you think, Jia Hao and Brandon? Energy-wise, like what kind of festival is? There are many festivals out there in this end of the year period with the restrictions opening up. How do you think a festival like the Freedom Film Fest adds to the country culturally?
Like a festival like FFF is very important in Singapore. We have stories, local stories that needs to be heard. Without these stories, these are important stories that.
If any thoughts to add, Jia Hao?
Yeah, like I just think like it's a bit different from conventional film festivals. Like the message, the kind of works that are in the festival. These two kinds of festival are very different also. Like the films here primarily documentaries, but I think you don't see them on any local other festivals purely based on maybe like content, but I also feel like it's also precisely because it's like this kind of content needs to be told some way or the other, and yeah, it's quite important to have
I like that.
at
I like
least
that.
one of these kind of festivals around.
Yeah, I like that perspective, right? The perspective of the content that needs to be out there. I like to start our discussion, post-screening discussion with Dare to Document, since it's very much about. I'm very, very moved by the film. I find the approach that Celeste, the way you handled the topics in a very, very interesting, neutral way, without the need to sensationalize, like how it is recently very, very trendy in documentaries to manipulate. There's a lot of emotional manipulation. I like that neutrality, the tone, almost like a document, right? Dare to document, and the way you feature very, very interesting characters that we know in Singapore, but not so much as sensational, heroic human beings, but as ordinary, very regular, very, very ordinary people. And I thought there's a very, very human touch that we have with this. Maybe my first question, just to make it a little bit more fun, I'll ask the boys what they think of Dare to Document. I'm curious about Chris. How do you feel about this?
Well, I mean, honestly, the way I feel about it is quite in line with what you said. The sense that nothing was sensationalized; it was honest and down to earth, which I think is really important, especially for the subject matter. It's the film kind of I don't know. It made me feel wary of the media landscape here and why it's important to have a voice in the public space with regards to social issues and things like that. I think it is important.
Right. You have any thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, I think over and above the content, I think it's also important to always have these sort of works come out, because it's always important to have discourse, and the discussion will never end. That's the reason why that's important.
Yeah, interesting how you talk about how a discussion never ends, and that's also the reason why we have documentary by different people, because the different voices are necessary. Your film definitely features a lot of voices, and it reminded me about the role of cinema in lending a voice, right? Lending a voice not just to people but to issues, to the voiceless. I'm very curious. I mean, you're obviously a very, very young filmmaker. Most of the people that you interview are people who have their certain battles a generation before you as well. How is it like documenting this from I would say, an outsider perspective, right? You coming in, and yet at the same time documenting it. Tell me more about this process.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for saying those very kind words about the film, and I'm really glad that kind of balance and nuance comes across. I guess starting with the idea of being a young person making this film, these were all people that I had heard of before, like Function 8, Martin C, and etc. And being able to interview them was like an experience that I never thought that I would get to have. And there were so many questions that I wanted to ask them, and so much that was captured that couldn't go into the documentary. I think because there's so little received knowledge as a young person in Singapore. Like, there are all these histories that are mentioned in the film, but they have been hidden from us, and the only way you ever find out about them is to know the right people, or to come across them somehow, or to do your own digging. So I guess it's a kind of process of like documenting the people who are documenting in the first place, and trying to show that the effort that they put into that documentation is is very critical in order for us to have some kind of continuity of knowledge about all these things that are going on. Yeah.
Guys, feel free. If you guys have any questions you want to ask Celeste, feel free to pop in as well. But I think I would like to ask Celeste, following up on this. You probably have so much video footage that you have, right? You have probably captured lots of footage. You probably have captured lots of interviews. You probably have captured so much B-rolls and collected footage. What goes into your mental process? Is it messy to try to put a narrative together from a storyteller's perspective?
Yeah, it was messy, but I think I started out in like a very chronological and linear way, and I think you can definitely see that in the film as well, because it's never. I guess like when you hear like, oh, dare to document like 10 years of history, right, it seems like a very like upward kind of like we are at our peak now, but that's obviously not the case, right? There are all these like backslides that happen in between. There's like censorship, people get tired, people get arrested. So it's not like one linear process, and so that makes the story itself very messy to cut. Like it's like, what emotion do you want people to have at the end of the film? It's not necessarily hope also. I mean, I personally would hope that what people take away from it is that that everyone kind of needs to participate in carrying this on and like continuing this storytelling journey. But I guess it's a very different process for feature and narrative films.
You definitely that thought that you tell me about definitely translates in the film. The idea of how it is not the effort of any single hero in this film, the way you put it, is very much a collective effort that is kind of ongoing. The film is almost like a journey, a document of a journey that is still not over yet. And it's a journey that is an ongoing. It's a beautiful and humbling way to celebrate 10 years. Not the kind of like, yeah, we're celebrating 10 years. Look at how great we are. It's a film that's aware of the perseverance and the strife that is needed, the ongoing, and the humility as well. I think maybe I'll take a moment to hear about Boys from 自由自在. Right? 自由自在 is this really wonderful film. We saw the trailer just now. Something so different from Dare to Document. Suddenly we are entered into the world of music, dialogue, dancing, colors, light. You're transported to this surreal world. I'd like to ask you guys, as a team of 4 people, how does this work out? I think let's get the elephant in the room sorted out first. Everybody, here we have this documentary by this one girl, and here we have 4 filmmakers. How does it work out? Who does what? Share with us.
Okay. How do I say this? So there are 4 of us, but so many times we work with one head. That's the best way I can put it. So many of when we discuss things with ourselves, so many of our ideas are aligned in the sense that we can discuss the story, we can discuss shots, and somehow all of us are thinking the same thing. But I don't think it's a coincidence. It's all because we are influenced by the same films, right? And the stories you want to tell are also very similar. So
help the audience to understand how this works first. You know, like 4 people in the film. Is it like a Monty Python thing, or is there a writer? How do you do that? Let's start with the roles first. Who does what, roughly? A quick one.
It's a bit Monty Python, It really is, but roughly. So for officially, I would say for the film there are 2 directors, me and Jia Hao. So
Jiahao, raise your hand so that the audience will remind us who's Jiahao. Yes, so Tim and Jiahao being the directors. Okay.
So that was on set. On set, Brandon took more of a producer role, and there's Chris who's usually behind the camera, helping with.
And the writing is.
Writing was Jiahao and Brandon at first. Yeah.
I see. And Chris being the DP, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, me and another guy, very talented guy called Sadiq Mansour, we formed two halves of the whole camera department.
So even the DP, there are two as well.
Yeah, it was very, very intense and collaborative for real the whole way through.
This whole very unorthodox approach to, I don't know what you call it, collective filmmaking or collective authorship, is it an intentional direction, intentional creative direction?
I honestly think it was born out of necessity, because when you're working with limited resources, you're forced to get creative with what roles you can fill and how much you can handle on set. So lots of us at all times were juggling many different things. And it was kind of miraculous, but it flowed so well that I kind of prefer that environment to having a million people on set and department heads, and then, you know, just the whole traditional setup is, I find in this kind of small cast, small closed locations, minimal setups, I find it to be a bit of a burden because people get in the way, and then you know, there are setups and cubbies for every different thing, and this actually flowed a lot nicer in my opinion.
This is wonderful. Maybe to share a little bit with the audience who's listening in, I'm also, I visited your set. I think I was involved as part of the Citizen Cinema Film Lab. So I was looking at the project, advising you guys a little bit. So I would say that when I visit the set, I'm like, wow, this is an interesting set. There are so many creative ways of decision making that you guys have. There's different process to this thing, and as a filmmaker myself, I'm like, wow, I think I shouldn't disturb them too much. They have their own little organic. It seems very, very organic. It didn't feel like a forced method, a new method or something that you all decided on. There was a very, very flow of energy from the cast as well, from the way the cast brought the magic to the set. Unlike Celeste, right, where documentary is very much created by words from the people that you document from, the dialogue in your film, 自由自在, is all written, it's all put together, it's all assembled. Music, the dialogue, the imagery, and all of that. Tell me about your thoughts about so much creation, so much manufacturing. Yeah, tell me your thoughts about this in the world of filmmaking, storytelling. That's your thoughts.
Us, right? Not Celeste.
Sorry?
Us or Celeste?
I think it's you.
Interesting stuff.
Oh, okay. Both easy and hard. Some parts came easily to us, some parts were difficult, some parts we realized that we didn't have for instance, some parts of the dialogue, we realized that we do have a story we want to tell, we have shots that we want to show, and then the always like the missing 10%, the 10% of things that we miss out. Like if we have a dialogue that we need to carry a scene, then it becomes a bit difficult for us to do. Yeah, but we still have to do it because we still have to make the scene work.
Yes. There's a question from the audience right now. The audience is asking about how complete is the film? Is the script completed? And how complete is the film right now? Because we are teased.
How many percent?
I mean, I'd say we're at least 90% there.
Yeah.
90%, all right.
I mean,
yeah.
How long have you taken to make a film like this?
How long did we take? I think from inception until now. When was the film lab? This time, 3 years ago.
I think it's about 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
2.5 years.
Yeah. So that was when I think Ren and Xiao started writing. And then the film lab was around like this time 2 years ago.
Right.
And then that's when we met Tzang. That's when Tzang came in and gave us some advice. And then we started casting from then. So I think the entire process from 2.5 years. Yeah.
Right. Well, on that note, let's talk about Citizen Cinema Film Lab, right? I think you talk a little bit about that in the documentary as well. But just for the audience to understand, the Citizen Cinema, is a series of film labs where speakers are invited and they did a bit of sharing about different processes from the legal aspect of filmmaking to the fiction writing, which I contributed, to documentary filmmaking, to how to go about challenging issues. I think there was a series of wonderful curated by the FreedomFilmFest to connect them with young people so that young filmmakers are equipped with certain knowledge, know-how, very, very real life practical skills that maybe it's not something that we learn at film school, but very, very on the ground kind of knowledge. So I thought that was a very meaningful project organized by the festival community. But hearing is one thing to hear from the festival, is one thing to hear from the contributors like myself. But what is it like from the point of view of you people? What made you decide to come to Citizen Cinema Film Lab? And how did, in your own honesty, right, how did this film lab benefited you? Maybe I'd like to hear from Celeste.
Yeah, so I kind of saw the Citizen Cinema Film Lab like post on Facebook or something, and I was just in between things. I was still in school and not sure of like what I wanted to do, and I had like made student films before, but not anything like this. And I think I went in like with this idea to make a film about the death penalty. So I was very like ambitious and idealistic, and obviously didn't make that film. But you know, I didn't make that film also because I felt like I didn't know where to start and felt very alone. So it was quite amazing to meet people to collaborate with and directors that I like looked up to. And also there was this sense of like possibility in the things that were being shared, like that the people who were invited to speak were people who had experienced certain struggles and were very open about sharing that. And then within Citizen Cinema itself and Freedom Film Festival, I felt like there were people who like took a chance on me and took a chance on the documentary. So yeah, very grateful for that.
Thank you for sharing this. How about 自由自在, the boys from 自由自在? How did Citizens Film Lab
Adding on to what Celeste said, I think we're just very happy that people were interested to hear our ideas. I think especially us because I think most of us didn't have a film background. So I think plenty of film labs, they are interested in people who already have a certain track record. So to be given this opportunity, really grateful.
Yeah. Question for Jia Hao. Are there any particular speakers or talks that stand out to you in this film lab? Like I talk about the various speakers that were invited in the various parts of the thing that was created. What do you think was most helpful for young filmmakers?
I think it's for me, I can only speak like from the perspective of someone who never went to film school.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a group of people to share something with, and you know you're not scared. You know to be scared. You know, and yeah, like if you're in a, let's say, a big festival film lab, you know, like without, first of all, you won't even be able to get into the festival film lab because you have no track record. But second of all, you won't even like be, for me like, I'll be too scared to say anything. You know, like who am I to pitch my idea? You know,
I like this. I like this whole idea of how you reminded me about the entry point, right? Like are we worthy, or what is our track record, and what have we done before to enter a film festival or to be part or involved in the film community, and who am I to say that I have something to contribute? But yet at the same time, the irony is that film is a voice. It's something that I was reminded when I watched Celeste's film as well. The film is a voice, and it is a voice that requires us to learn the language of cinema and find our own ways to contribute, be it through storytelling, through fiction, and through documentary. But some keywords that I hear from Celeste as well as from Jiahao is like Celeste, you talk about lonely. Jiahao, you talk about where your background. Can I just have a quick round of you guys to let us know a little bit what's your area of study so that we give the audience a kind of context of are we all film students here? All right.
I mean, I went to film school, so that's film is my area of study.
So Chris is film school, right?
Yeah.
All right. And you're from where in film school?
I went to NYU Film School. Tisch. Yeah, Tisch School of the Arts.
And thanks to that, you are in Singapore and we connected with you and you're part of the project. Tim, what about you? Your
Study physics.
physics.
Not related.
So we have a physics boy here, Celeste.
I studied anthropology, but yeah, I made student films lah, but it's cannot make it kind. Yeah.
Wow. And Brandon?
I studied physics also, same as Tim. That's where we met one another.
And Jiahao?
I studied electronics and electrical engineering.
So this is something very interesting for our audience here who's listening in, right? I think cinema has now become a language that that's of course very, very charming. It's a language that of course we need to learn. It's not something that anybody can just jump into. But it also takes a little bit, in fact, it takes more courage for these crazy people to try to attempt to do something and did a pretty good job with it as well. Let me see what is the question that the audience is asking. All right. Oh yes, a question for Celeste. Did you always know your interview format or wait, let me try to digest this question first. Did you always know you would go for an interview format or do you consider other formats as well? So yeah, I mean, in documenting the film festival, the 10 years of Freedom Film Festival, has it always been your intention to handle it with interviews, with vox pops, rather than with voice-over narration or something like that?
Yeah, I think I wanted it to be always to be interview, and I mean, I and the people that I was working with, the producer and the cinematographer, wanted it to be an interview format because the people are very much the focus of the film. Yeah, and yeah, it's their stories of it that give it the most strength. Yeah.
On that note, Celeste, the cameraman, the DP, and the people that were involved that you're filming, does it intimidate you, a young filmmaker, that you are filming something like this? Or will you at times feel like you, as a director, and I can imagine the pressures of a young female director trying to helm a project of some kind of importance. Like, was it intimidating in the way you communicate with your crew? Share.
Yeah, so I mean, it really was like on most shoots, it was just me, the producer, and the DP. So, I think that helped like to keep it small and also like getting to know each of them as individuals and our working style. I think it was very intimidating at first, given the people that I was interviewing, and most of them are also filmmakers, right? So like when I ask them questions, there are times when they will tell me that I shouldn't ask a question this way, or that I like. And it was good advice. So it was kind of like I was learning to be a better filmmaker while interviewing them. I don't think they meant it in like a rude way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Celeste, I really like the way you answer your questions as well. You have a certain humility about. Yeah, I mean, usually for questions about like this, right? It is always almost a obligatory kind of a way where a filmmaker will talk about how she asserts herself, how she finds the courage to assert herself. But yet you also have this very, very realistic openness and understanding about. I think it takes a very, very confident person to be aware of gaps and involved in the process of recognition. So this is wonderful. Thanks for sharing it like this, Celeste. Yeah, I think there's another question here from the audience coming in. Shout out to the audience. Feel free to ask any question. Give your chance to trip them up. Ask them some difficult questions. See whether they can. See whether they're okay or not. Okay, so the question for the Drifting Clouds, right? How much more do you need to complete your film? If you understand, and I want to say that there is no many good projects take a long time to finish. Even the last 10%, the last 20%, because we all know what we want the film or how that film could be. And I can understand, as a person who's close to your project, close to you guys, I can understand the kind of feelings of perseverance, frustration, and persevere for how long more in order to make a film like this. So I kudos to you guys. I know this feeling, and I really like how you guys are holding on, just like so many other people documented in the Freedom Film Fest. There are also people who held on. It's so much easier to quit. So the question now is, how much more do you need to complete your film, and maybe what's ending? What's left?
I think just now Chris was being a bit optimistic by saying it's at 90%. Yeah, for me, I think I would say we are around 90%. I think Chris is saying because we know exactly what else we need to do. We are 90% clarity, like what the things that are to come.
Yes.
We are now going into not a reshoot, but like additional scenes that will just in review take this film to we feel we'll take this film to the next level. So we don't want to rush this thing, like and yes, it's holding on, but it's also the four of us, we believe that it's worth holding on.
Money wise, how much more?
Not rush. Yeah. Like, of course, like there is production and then there is post-production. For production, it's like a sum, and then post-production, it's another completely different set of sum. Yeah, but being optimistic, it's, I would say, around $30. That is being very optimistic.
30K.
Yeah, like that, and also that most of that will probably go into post. Yeah, that's just where the money is. Like it's so neat that you can't do it yourself. Yeah, especially sound.
Yeah,
sound.
I understand. I think so. This is something for the audience to understand. This group of people. Today we have seen, I think it's very, very brave of the festival, the Freedom Film Festival, to show a completed film and a work in progress film. I think this is a very interesting way of curating an opening event for to celebrate 10 years. All right, there's so many other great films. So it's an honor for all three of us. But for the audience who is interested to participate in the dreams of a drifting cloud, very passionate young people who have persevered for so long already on their own money, and at the expense of delaying delaying a proper full-time job, right, so that you can complete your film. Yeah, so respect to that. Let me see. I think I have a new question coming in for Celeste. Oh, this is a nice one. Thank you for this question, audience member. Celeste, what was the favorite part about making this film?
Oh, wow. I think my favorite part is really like the behind the scenes work and building relationships with the people who I collaborated with, like Nina, the producer, who I keep saying, and Fat, the DP. They were so essential to making this happen, and like their trust in me, their confidence in me, it's because like Drifting Cloud, y'all was saying just now also, right? Like feeling like we cannot say anything because we don't have that background, and having people of that expertise and then building that relationship with them really helped. Yes, that's really the best part, I think, and hoping to keep collaborating with those people.
Since you talk about lonely at the beginning, and I think making a film like this, of course, you get to interview lots of people, and that's all good. But once it goes back to the editing room, it's very, very much a lonely process as well, right? What's your process like? Who do you have as a sounding board? These four guys, I'm not worried. They have each other as a sounding board. But what about you? Like, who do you have as a sounding board? So somebody to look through your cuts, or somebody to talk to your. How do you talk to yourself internally about your storytelling decisions?
Actually, the way the four of you talk about collaborating is a lot like how I think I felt working with Nina and Fun as well, because we were like constantly like feeding off each other's ideas. And so like I cut the storyline itself, and the other everything that made the film look good basically like was in the hands of Nina and Fat. So like it really was a collaborative process. And I think that's what filmmaking should be. Like, I really hate like author theory, you know, like it's a lie. There's no such thing as that one. So like the real like collaborative nature of it is something that I really treasure. Yeah. And I think another thing also about like going back to the question about like the collaboration being the best part of making this film, right? I feel like if you don't, and I think it's echoed in the film as well, if you don't find people to be in solidarity with and to like empathize what you're going through, you will just, like in a place like Singapore, you'll really just lose sight of a lot of things, and you like gaslight yourself in to believing certain things because of you know, the way things are. So I think having that community is form is really the best part of it for me. Yeah.
Hearing you talk about gaslighting yourself reminds me about how the language of cinema allows that kind of a dialogue, the internal dialogue that we have in our head, right? The dialogue of the consciousness, and how films, whatever genre, capture some kind of a consciousness of a time, all right? And there will be people who disagree with a particular voice, but it is a voice. It is a voice, a contributing voice to the consciousness of this current time. And what we need is more voices. On that note, I think I would like to ask the Drifting Cloud, you know, like watching a documentary and on the context of freedom, in the context of telling stories that matter out. What do you think is the role of fiction in the world of telling stories that matter, right? Fiction, which is constructed reality, constructed narratives, created characters. What freedom does fiction give you that you feel will contribute to this consciousness of a festival like FreedomFilmFest?
I think fiction allows us to confront real world problems, but from a much safer place than the documentary, especially in the local context. Yeah.
The rest of you?
I think in a sense, like you said quite early on, it's about uncovering stories that are untold. So I think that is actually what we're doing. But the power of fiction is in the sense that we are able to allegorize things, you know what I mean? So these things that the key issues that we want to address and the themes that we want to talk about in our film, by creating a fiction piece, you're able to amplify these sort of things and present it like a fable sort of way. So I think that for instance, it's good for an audience to, you know, when they watch it, they'll be able to pick out these things, you know, when allegories or metaphors they see on screen. I think it will hit home.
Allegories, metaphor. Yeah, I think what really hit is really interesting that it's the kick of your film right after Dare to Document, and Dare to Document is so grounded, so real. At the same time, you have a piece of work that suddenly the music comes in, and suddenly the feelings of the stylized visuals, the feelings of pace, the ability to make us watch somebody dance to be in their own world, that kind of transports us to a certain place. Yeah, I thought that's something that fiction has the ability to to take us through. So yeah.
Yeah,
something?
actually, sorry, this like your trailers make me think of like some of the most painful and like real Singapore films. I think are like I think the 12 Stories and Singapore Dreaming. Like yeah, that's what your trailers really make me think of, and how fiction can has the power to do that. Yeah.
That's really
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I know it's a lot to live up to, but yeah.
But what is the feeling like, guys? Unlike Celeste, with a like completed product, but here you are showing this like glimpses of your work, and a glimpse of your work is still a glimpse. It's still not the whole thing, right? How do you feel as filmmakers to be like in this half? I don't want to say purgatory lah, but you know this
Liminal.
this dimension of in-betweenness. What's it like in your mind right now? You don't have that feeling of celebrative screening, right? So tell me more about this feeling that you're having going through.
I mean, okay, I'll just go first because for me it's a bit weird because every project that I've worked on, when it's done, you feel a certain way about it. When you're in it, you feel a certain way about it, and your feelings will change over time. And when you see the work, you either like it or you dislike it, right? And we've been doing this this project for quite a long time, and you bring up fatigue and feelings of things going on and like that. But honestly, every time I think about it, I'm still exhilarated. I love the story. I love everything about this idea, and yeah, I don't think I'm feeling any of that fatigue. I'm raring to go, honestly.
It's so wonderful to hear that. You reminded me about why we do art, right? Why we do art as filmmakers. There is one thing that, yes, it's also one thing about sharing that voice. It's also another thing that is, we know that it's going to go out somewhere. We know that there is magic in it. Somehow we know in our hearts that there's magic in it. And being independent, right? I think the charm of independent filmmaking is, it's not that a studio has seen charm in it, or a studio has seen potential in it, or a sponsor has seen potential in it. Being independent is all about how you yourself see magic in something that made you believe in it enough to invest your body, your being, time, a space in your life, a period of time in your life. Filmmaking is never done in 2 weeks, all right? A period of time in your life, that kind of commitment to pour yourself into it, and because there's something in it, something exhilarating to your work,
right,
that drives you. Tell me, what is the story that 自由自在 is trying to express? All right, 自由自在, we always say over here that it's ZY, ZZ, 自由自在. Just for the audience to understand, 自由自在 in Chinese means free and easy, so the English subtitle is free and easy. But yeah, in a way, the English word can't quite capture 自由自在. But can somebody here try to tell us, the audience, what is that wonderful story that you are trying to say with you?
I think a big part of what we are trying to say is that living in Singapore, we have our needs and our wants. But sometimes these needs and wants are not met. So the only way is to escape, whether physically or spiritually. Then the next question is, what if we cannot even escape? So these are questions that we want to ask our audience.
So beautiful. You have a way of talking where I'm thinking as you are talking, how about the escape, and how, in a way, you kind of answered a question that I want to ask: why fiction is able to tell certain stories that documentaries can't tell as well, right? You are able to go into the world of dreams, and in this case, it's a dream of two guys, two dudes, two other beings. And definitely, I think you guys have very, very charismatic actors, very actors that have a lot of screen presence. You know, in the usual trope of an Ah-Beng film, right? In the Ah-Beng film is always this whole brother thing, and very, very often the female is often just a beautiful, pretty thing. your film seems to land a different kind of consciousness, a different kind of a trope to the Arding film. You have a female voiceover talking about happy endings and talking about giving people the ending that they want. I think there's something very philosophical in a film like this. You want to share me more about the presence of the female character in the film?
In fact, it was kind of your idea, no, Tzang? Well, after the lab ended and we first met with our mentors and we met Tzang, right? And we ran through like sort of the story with him, the characters, and it was actually kind of Zhang's idea. Hey, why not let's make this let's not make this female just another alien or like, you know, to hang off the side of their arms. Yeah, why not let's make her have a story, and then we really took that and we wrote with that. And in a sense, she is the center of the story. She becomes the teller of the story, and in a sense, yeah, that's pretty much it. We didn't want to. We're very aware of that, you know, that trope, and we didn't want to. We made sure we stayed away from that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much to applaud about the film, right? With the lighting, the colors, the textures that you have. But without a doubt, we notice the pacing, right? That slow pacing. I'm curious. Now I want to ask Celeste, how do you feel about this kind of pacing? Oh, you see how they talk super slow and show the scenes super long. You have any thoughts about, because your documentary definitely has a different rhythm. Well, let's hear from you, Celeste.
I think it's just a stylistic difference, I guess. I think I'm actually, personally, my taste is towards like more meditative things also. But this again is a combination of many different ideas in the room, and I think it suits the energy of the festival, which I think is more important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of us all bring different flavors to the nature of storytelling, and how I think a film like 自由自在 does require, I mean, it's more than just a film about complaints and dreams and needs and wants. It's also a film that invites the audience to participate in the thinking, right? Yeah, and in Celeste's case, here we have a story about different voices, different issues. And when I say different issues, different voices, I don't just mean political. I like how your film talk about the feeling of community, the community watching a film together, right? It's more than just making films, but the community given the permission to feel certain things collectively in the cinema, all right? And how there are films that talk about gender issues, sex workers, migrant workers, these issues that are seen as taboo, and as what the character says in the film. How when things become less taboo, there is some real thing done through not just film, but art, through voices, through speaking out, through activism, right? We have made certain, I think when things are taboo, means we don't talk about them. It also means some kind of a suppression, right? Pretending it don't exist. And while it is okay and maybe better for harmony at the beginning, it does lead to a lot of pent-up anxiety, frustration, fears, unheard voices, and it is definitely unhealthy. So when I watch Celeste, your film, it reminds me of the importance for us as a society to be a safe space for different voices, or for different avenues to hear these things. So speaking on that note of community, what do you think, because it's one thing to make films, it's another thing to have a community that supports something like the FreedomFilmFest, something like the kind of films that you guys choose to make, or future you guys choose to make. What do you think the role of the community does in this continuation?
Community is everything, pretty much. For honestly how small we are, community is the it's the key ingredient to, like you said, longevity. If like there's a next generation of filmmakers who are gonna come after us, like Celeste mentioned, 12 stories, and it's these local films that we watch that without watching these local films, we wouldn't think of making our own film. We wouldn't think of the things we want to say. And the things that we want to say set in the Singaporean context wouldn't be what we would have said if we didn't already see these local films and what they address. So I a bit hard to say. It's everything. It really is. And I think the film lab actually also is kind of a good example of that. To see so many familiar faces, and after that, how so many of us have kept in contact and how we have become friends, and people are checking on us. Hey, how are things going? How's the film going? I think that means, wow, I'm checking a bit.
Yeah, no, it's true though.
Yeah,
Sorry?
people of different age groups as well, right? It's not people
Yeah.
in a circle, but people of different age groups. So it leads to a certain intergenerational a dialogue, right?
That's very important. Yeah.
And I think they also benefited. I think the people of the older generation also benefited. Myself, I felt that I benefited from being part of the Citizen Cinema Film Lab as well, because we get a chance to hear the perspectives of you guys and how you guys are not as entangled in certain issues that we have, and there is a certain freshness, a certain approach, and yet you also could benefit from. So I see, that there's this big value in a intergenerational communication, rather than when one scene ends, it's over, and this scene don't like that scene, the Gen Y don't like boomer don't like millennial or something. But, yeah, right. Celeste, any thoughts on community as the importance of community in film, cinema, as an audience?
I think first of all, like building a community around anything takes a lot of work. So even building up the Freedom Film Festival community, which is something that I really wanted to emphasize in the film. It's not just like the filmmakers, but like everyone involved in the ecosystem of it, like the organizers, the volunteers. And then Shamima, the volunteer, has this one of the volunteer and like a manager for a lot of things that goes on in the festival. Right? She has this line about how there's all these things that go on behind the scenes that no one ever thinks about, and those are so vital to creating like a sense, like the space in which the festival is held. And without that kind of work, you cannot have a community. But it's so easily forgotten. Because you put in the creative work, you write your script, and then you go look for money, right? But I think that kind of shows like how many different forms of support are really needed, like emotional, financial,
logistical.
Yeah, logistical, and it's often made invisible, forgotten.
Very often, I think we see the things that we see, right? Whatever is presented, the presentation side, right? And we think that the presentation side is all that we need, but as how your film documented, the amount of logistical work that goes behind, be it a film, be it a festival, be it just building a community, be it just organizing this Zoom screening, right? And on that note, I think Freedom Film Festival is also continuously on the lookout for volunteers, the next generation of volunteers. So I think if you guys are listening in, and I think the kind of support that we need in the community definitely involves money. Money is one big thing that we all understand. But not everybody has that money to come in. We can't come in with money, we come in with time, we come in with support, we come in with energy, good spirit, or even simply buying a ticket would have done. It gives all the tireless people right behind the festival, behind the films, and also not forgetting that cinema, regardless of the pandemic or non-pandemic, regardless of whether or not we have a physical space of a dark cinema, is still a space for us to assemble, different people who like certain films to assemble and talk about certain issues that your tribe allows you to talk about. And I think over here we are a tribe of filmmakers there are other screenings that we are tribe of the underprivileged, the tribe of people with gender issues. And it's only when you find film can be this collective, right? This magnet, this drawing power. Yeah, I think we seems to have covered quite a lot of very, very interesting topics. Let me take a quick look at what the audience is saying. For Celeste, somebody is saying, for Celeste, thanks for making this film. Is there anything you want to include but didn't get to? Is there anything that you would like to have done differently?
Wow, that's a big question. Would have liked to include.
Yeah, anything that you'd like to include or would have liked to have done differently? Thanks for the question. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for that. I'm gonna have to think about that one. I feel like I definitely have a lot of lessons. I have regrets about certain things, but at this point, it's very difficult to say that I would have done anything differently. It feels like a complete work.
Wonderful.
And like the story has been told, but it will need to keep being told. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I understand. I think we kind of ran out of time already. I hope the audience at home has benefited from the insights that these young filmmakers are sharing. I hope that Freedom Film Festival don't feel that they make a wrong decision to have us open the festival. I think it's really interesting, the three of us all being different different types of filmmakers. Myself, I made a dystopian feature film with a very, very different taste from Tzang, very different style from that document as well. So it's been a great honor for all of us. Let's end this with a message of celebration, the celebration of 10 years of the Freedom Film Fest. There are many, many other films in the next few days. Please check them out. The feelings of the freedom that we all still have in our hearts, freedom as a state of mind, the feelings of community and feelings of continuity. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers to everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.